Hello again and welcome to another bearing removal and installation video featuring Boca bearings. Now today's engine is a customer engine and it just so happens to be a two-stroke helicopter engine. A helicopter engine from one of the finest engine manufacturers ever of both two-stroke and four-stroke engines, and that would be Enya. Today's engine is an Enya SS35BB helicopter engine. So I'm going to take you to the table, show you this beautiful engine, and then we're going to get right to what should be, we hope, a rather simple bearing removal and installation. Okay, so here on the table I've got the engine and some of the things I'll be using to remove these bearings. But first I just want to show you this beautiful engine. And obviously helicopter engines are unique because they usually always have this nice big square or larger head, heatsink head, because of the install or the being installed within a helicopter's cowling where it doesn't get a whole lot of airflow. So it needs to have maximum airflow cooling for the head. But this is a front housing detachable engine. In fact, it doesn't even have a rear cover that can be detached at all. And I've got one screw in this head just so for mocked up purposes, so it'll just stay in place. But so this is the portion we're going to be dealing with today in this bearing removal and installation, and it should be rather simple. Now the thing I thought was interesting about this is it's got a Woodruff key that holds the drive hub on, and the Woodruff key that came out of this, so it's got a really large keyway, but the key that came out of this thing was really tiny. I mean, it was super small. In fact, it was so small I almost lost it, not knowing, thinking it should have been a lot bigger, because you would think it would protrude but much further through that. So this crankshaft is probably designed for an aircraft engine also that would use a much thicker prop hub. So with all that good stuff said, and I have the piston and connecting rod still within this engine, because we're not going to be using this portion at all for this process, I'm just going to leave it as is, and we're going to get to removing and replacing these bearings. Okay, so here I've just got the front housing. I forgot to take this drive hub off, so I'll just take that off and set it there. Now this engine, as far as I know, it looks like it's got some oil residue on there. It looks like a very new engine, but you know, I don't know that it's going to require much cleanup at all. So I've got my Delrin block, I've got my hammer here, light hammer, and the Boca bearing removal, one of the jaw sets or chucks sets from the Boca bearing removal, miniature bearing removal set in case I need that. And then just a flat nose punch, my desk vise, and my heat gun. So I'm just going to throw my glove on here real quick and heat this little front end up just enough to hopefully facilitate quick and easy crankshaft removal. And I'm sitting here looking at the desk vise, and I didn't really configure this desk vise to set this up yet. So what I really need to do is, that's not too hot yet. I need to set this up so that we can kind of hold this front end like this in place. Okay, so I need to be able to support it like this, but yet not touch the crankshaft. So now that that's set up, now I can do a little bit more heating here, because that just doesn't feel like it's going to be warm enough. And I might be able to just do the heating just like this now too. Okay, I think we got that warm enough, so that should just come right out. Okay, so it looks like the crankshaft is coming out without the bearing. So, and I think I'm seeing an issue here, which is probably one of the reasons why I do these videos for Boca, in that, well, we'll talk about the bearing issue that I potentially see here when we get to the bearing installation portion of it. Let's just go ahead and get these out. So this thing is rather warm, but I think I should be able to get this out pretty easy. It is kind of warm still. Okay, so there's our front bearing is out, and so yes, this is an issue. I ordered a set of bearings straight from the Boca site, and I would have to go back and reference exactly what the part number was or the item number. But the set of bearings I got have two bearings that are exactly the same size, and I thought that seemed odd because I've never really seen that configuration before. Clearly, these two bearings are not the same size. So while I'll be able to remove the bearings, I'm not going to be able to actually install a new set, because unless I just so happen to have one of these on hand, which I'm not even sure what that is yet, I won't be able to install a set yet until I get the right one. So that'll be another update to the Boca website. So let me see if I can get this bearing expand tool here ready to get in there and then take this rear bearing out. So sometimes I have to just pre-expand those jaws just a little bit to start getting it in there to the gap. And then once it's there, now I can expand those jaws fully. Except when that happens. So let's get this set up so it's the right size. Okay, now we're at the right size. Now we should be able to just hopefully that'll just stay right there so I can tighten this jaw up. So I tightened it up enough to get some tension on it, but I just have to make sure that it's in that gap. I think that should be holding that sufficiently. Oops, went the wrong way. I don't want to do that. Okay. It's hard to see if I'm in that gap or not. Let me see if I can shine a light down there. Yep. Okay, so now what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to have to heat this up again. And I'm going to have to use a drive punch to drive that out. So I believe I'll get my largest punch here like this. That should drive it out fine. So let me do a little more heating on that thing, and we should be able to get that bearing out too. Let's see if that's enough. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to hold it like this and just kind of try and drive this out, so you may not see much. It is coming out, as you can see here. That bearing's coming out. In fact, I can probably one more tap, and there it is. So the puller itself isn't hot, and I should be able to just loosen this up. The bearing is rather warm. So there we go. So here's our two bearings. Here's the rear bearing and the front bearing. Obviously they're nowhere near close to being the same size. So what I'm going to have to do here now is grab my digital calipers and take some measurements on there. If I could look at this one. This one's so clean I might be able to just read the numbers on this one. Perhaps. Looks like it says, I don't know, I'm going to have to get my magnifier out and read that. So I'm going to pause here real quick, get my magnifier out, and get the calipers out, and we'll take some measurements. Okay, I'm back after having done a little bit of research here. So this is the kit number that I found on Boca's website that said it was for SS35H engines under Enya, which to me meant SS35H meaning helicopter. And kit number was ENK-156. And when I pulled that up, obviously I ordered that kit for this customer, and it says here that both bearings are an MR6801-ZZC, which and PS2, which is what these two bearings are. However, unfortunately, those are not the correct bearings for this particular Enya SS SS35BB engine. And so I cleaned up this one side of this rear bearing, and man, these things it is so small on there. You may not even be able to see it. I had to use my, I don't know if this is a 10x magnifier or a 20x. So it's a 10x magnifier just so I could read that. 6901 for the rear bearing, and the 6901 bearing dimension should be, it's a metric bearing, MR 6901, so metric. So 12 millimeters by 24 by 6, and we'll take some quick measurements just to double check that. And then the front bearing, I cleaned up the front shield and it was not that dirty, but I still needed my magnifier, and it says it is an R4AAZ, which is an imperial size bearing. So let's just verify these measurements here real quick. So this is something that I will be updating, sending to Boca to update their website, because there's definitely an error in the listing there. So let's just start with this rear bearing. I've got it set for metric measurements. So we are looking at 11.94, or basically a 12 millimeter ID. We'll go for the OD here, which is 23.97 or a 24 as it says. And then our thickness is a 6 millimeter. 5.98. So we got that. I don't know if I held this up so you could see it. 23.98, so 24. So this is correct for that. The R4AAZ is an imperial. So let's change that to inches. So our ID is 0.248 or 0.25, quarter inch by 3/4, 0.7495. And then our thickness here is a 0.279 or 280. So that seems to be a rather standard R4 bearing. So that's what we're going to have to submit to Boca to update this kit number. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go any further with the bearing installation of this engine until I get a new set of bearings, because I do not have these two particular ones on hand at all in any form. So that's going to conclude our bearing removal and installation video for now.